Based in Richmond, Texas. 33-year-old Instagram influencer and freelance mono. Janai Kanya had the kind of lifestyle that many can only dream of, having amassed over 2 million followers on her various social media profiles. Ghani reportedly netted a six-figure income as a result of remaining sponsorship and endorsement deals. Using the pseudonym Mercedes Moore Garnier, social media followers included the likes of Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Snoop Dogg, and Meek Mill. Meaning that by August of 2020, she was arguably one of the most famous social media influencers on the planet. Like many of her peers being introduced to the website, OnlyFans presented Kanya with a lucrative opportunity. Interact even more intimately with her gargantuan online following, whilst also opening up a potentially massive new revenue stream. But according to Janai's father, Mark, the titanic amount of attention she received brought just as many problems as it did benefits. We kept her real private. Not even some of her friends knew her real name. They just called her Mercedes. I moved my daughter into new apartments 3 times because of my insecurities, he said late last year. The sheer number of people following her online, it scared me, it continued. Some of them followed her because they admired her, loved her even, but some were crazy and obsessed. It was just obviously unhealthy. So at around 4 p.m. on Sunday, August 29th of 2020, when Mark Garnier hadn't heard from his daughter for almost 48 hours, he decided to stop by her home in Cortland Apartments to check on her. He pulled up, knocked on the door, but no one answered. Mark Garnier then pulled out his cell phone and gave his daughter a call, swearing he could almost hear it vibrating from somewhere inside. That's when he heard movement coming from inside the house. He hadn't heard from his daughter in days, and no one was answering the door to her apartment. So who was moving around inside? Mark Garnier said that he began to suspect something was horribly wrong, so in the next instant, he reeled back and sent his foot flying into the lock, kicking it open in one furious attempt. The sight that greeted him inside instantly broke his heart. There was his beloved daughter, lying lifeless at the bottom of the stairs. Our apartment had been completely trashed, and there appeared to be lipstick, graffiti all over the walls of the apartment. Yet before he had a chance to read any of it, Mark Garnier heard a noise coming from upstairs. Mark says then he did the moment. He thought his daughter might have fallen down the stairs and broken her neck. But hearing something coming from upstairs had him bolting up to that floor as fast as his legs could carry him. Only then did he see a man lying in a pool of his own blood, gurgling and choking with a knife stuck in his throat. As the life slipped away from him, Mark demanded answers from the dying man. But it was too late. He passed away just moments after Janai's father had broken into her home. Yet, in the disturbing twist of fate, Mark Garnier wouldn't be plagued by questions for very long. Because after he called 911, began to read some of the lipstick graffiti that had been scrawled on the walls. I was used for money, read one piece. I should have stayed in Florida, read another. The final piece Mark read was, "I wish I never loved her. Sorry to the landlord and family." He couldn't bring himself to read anymore. Although it appeared that his daughter's murderer had been scrolling over the walls for days. It summed up his feeling and motive in just a few short sentences. And to Mark, it only confirmed that his worst nightmares had come to life. Janine's killer turned out to be a 34-year-old Florida man by the name of Kevin O'Cordo. A man with such an unhealthy obsession with Janine that he somehow managed to track her down and kill her, all before taking his own life. He did not have any kind of prior arrest record in this home state, but during the subsequent investigation, police tried to establish that he'd had any prior history of mental health issues. "I don't even know how we found her," Mark Ganier later said. "I guarded my daughter. I wouldn't even let her friends know where she lived." Police still don't know how or when he got to Texas. There's so much that's still a mystery. The news of her death was broke by a Canadian rapper, Tory Lanez, who paid tribute to her with a post that read, "Rest in peace, Queen." A few of the tributes seemed to address the causes for death. She was very cautious about her surroundings. Janine's mother, Janata Grover, said, "But unfortunately, someone basically was stalking and killed my baby." It's irrefutably horrific and abhorrent that Kevin O'Cordo was able to track down and kill such an innocent young woman. But it's clear that Mark Ganier's fears were justified. No matter how much he tried to keep his daughter safe, the determination her stalkers showed in locating her significantly outweighed their efforts. And somehow, a man who wasn't exceptionally computer literate was about to somehow track down her home address. Some have speculated that the court does somehow got hold of Janine's billing information and discovered her real name and address in that way. In which case, OnlyFans has a long way to go before it can truly secure its content creators' privacy and security. So maybe until then, the risks of having an alluring online presence will outweigh any potential financial reward. First of all, let me say this is not an indictment of OnlyFans. If someone wants to profit from sharing pictures of themselves, of their body, that's totally their right, and I respect that. I'm not casting judgments on anyone who chooses to do so. But let me be clear. OnlyFans just about ruined my life. And I've never even set up a profile. It all kicked off not long after I broke up with a guy I've been dating for about 3 to 4 months. As a single mom, it's way harder to get dates than I'd like it to be. But at the same time, I totally understand why someone wouldn't want to raise a child that isn't theirs. I mean, I wish more guys would be open to it. It's not like I'd never have a kid with them too. But it's just a sad fact that it puts guys off when you got a child from a prior relationship. So you can imagine how excited I was when I met Richard. It's not his real name, but I'd rather not attract his attention. Thank you very much. Having a 6-year-old son didn't seem to bother him in the least bit, and even asked a lot of questions about him. I found the whole thing so refreshing and mature that by the time Richard asked me out, I just about bit his arm off, except in the invite. But then the first red flag appeared, when he started making comments about my son, calling him daddy. That wasn't the red flag in enough itself. It was more his reactions when I told him no. My son has a dad, and I don't want him confused as he grows up. Richard didn't seem to respect that position whatsoever, and actually said some quite personal things regarding my taste in men, as well as the integrity of my son's father. It's a complicated situational, can see that, but Richard's take on the whole thing was frankly disgusting and misogynistic. But given that it was a very unusual setup, I didn't want to give up on him so quickly. But since guys like him seem to be so hard to come by. But then, after 2 months of clashing, not often I should add, I had to face the music and accept that, if there was a guy out there for me, it certainly wasn't him. I've dated guys for 18 months, who took the breakup better than Richard. They're always rough, but I think if I actually told you what Richard did, you think that I was making this all up. Needless to say, his reaction totally justified my decisions to end things. And that's exactly how I phrased it too. But that breakup was far from the end of my ordeal with Richard. And you know what? It's kind of my fault too. In fact, it's mostly my fault. Because if I hadn't been so trusting, I wouldn't even be writing this right now. The one big mistake I made was trusting Richard to keep private certain pictures I sent him. I think I trusted him because, well, he sent me pictures of him too. I think that's why. There's a lot less nude leaks than there are nudes. It's like Americans and the Russians in the 80s. Mutually assured destruction. You release mine, well, I release yours. But after we broke up, I deleted all of his intimate pictures, and I was foolish enough to think that he'd also done the same. Because the next thing I know, I get a message from a friend of mine, saying something like, "Oh, you have an OnlyFans, you go girl." I had to ask her what OnlyFans was. I literally had no idea at the time. She replies like, "You joking, right? Was this supposed to be a secret?" Immediately I start Googling OnlyFans, and as you can imagine, I'm pretty shocked at what I see. The whole website is basically homemade lewd images. And for those that are familiar, and from what I could gather, the girls in question make quite a lot of money too. I mean, I wouldn't say no to an extra $2,000 a month. But I hadn't set up a profile, had I? I asked my friend to send me anything she's found with my name on it, then what do you know? Is it freaking OnlyFans profile set up in my name? And the whole preview picture in the banner was a raunchy picture that I'd sent to Richard. The profile said like free to subscribe. So I made a dummy user account to sign up. Only to discover that Richard must have uploaded about 10 different pictures. I'd sent to him all these disgusting captions that I'd rather not repeat here. I was angry. So angry. But I didn't get scared until I saw that he put up my home address. My actual home address. Apartment number, postcode, everything. it kicked in, how much danger I was in. And I just burst into tears, thinking that my own selfish actions had exposed my only son to danger. I know it was all Richard. And I know if he was just normal, then yeah, it wouldn't have happened. But I'm a mother, I should know better. I'm not some attention-seeking teenager anymore. I just wanted to feel wanted though. Surely people can understand that. In the end, I managed to get the profile taken down. And I think OnlyFans and other sites like that now make you verify your identity. So stuff like that can't happen again. But what if you manage to get a hold of a girl's idea, or something? The system they have doesn't completely eliminate the chance of fake profiles being set up. Like I said at the start, I don't mean to judge anyone who wants to do that kind of thing. I just hope they have their safety and security in mind. Because, as I think we all know, there are some serious psychos out there. In September of 2020, a 20-year-old Australian university student posted a harrowing personal account to the popular social media site Reddit. In it, she detailed the terrifying ordeal she'd been subjected to after posting intimate pictures of herself on a social media page known as OnlyFans. One involving obsessive stalking, internet loopholes, and ultimately a clear and present threat to her life. Only through a completely anonymous throwaway account did she feel safe enough to share her story, adding that her local police force had finally taken action against the person responsible. But even then, the girl made it clear that her complaints should have been taken seriously long before she was in any imminent danger. According to the girl, the incidents all started after she moved back with her parents during the summer break. The girl was particularly excited to be home, as the family had just bought a new puppy. By all accounts, the girl was having a ball, getting to know her new furry friend. But as anyone who's ever had a puppy will tell you, to say they can be a radical would be the understatement of the century. One night the girl awoke to hear her puppy yelping at the back door. They were in the middle of potty training, but the pup didn't quite have the hang of it yet. So she climbed out of bed, put on her slippers, and went downstairs to let the dog out. She says it was as late as 2:00 a.m., and there didn't seem to be another soul around as she stepped down into the night. But she soon found that she wasn't entirely alone. "I saw this figure in a car," she said. "I could tell they were looking at me, but it was pitch black outside, and I couldn't make out their face. I felt a bit uneasy, but I didn't really think anything of it. Only when I go back inside, the car started up and followed me up my driveway." The terror of such an experience is undeniable. And even though the girl was so close to home, there's no denying that being out alone, in the middle of the night, made her very vulnerable indeed. I was terrified the girl had it. I sprinted back inside and locked the door, and kept an eye out for them, in case they tried to break in. But as far as I know, they just backed out of our driveway and left. When she woke up the following morning, after a terrible night of restless sleep and deep concern, the girl found an envelope inside her parents' letterbox. The envelope contained not only 20 Australian dollars in cash, but also her OnlyFans username. I thought long and hard about how he could have found my parents' address, the girl said. And I worked out that the problems didn't start until I shared my Amazon wish list. OnlyFans and Amazon were both adamant that their security systems prevent leaks like that from taking place. However, it appeared that wasn't the issue, as third-party sellers are not bound to the same data protection laws as large multinational companies. Although she doesn't know for certain how her stalker got her address, the girl is 90% sure that they got in touch with a third-party seller and obtained her home address in that way. Whether was money coercion or intimidation that caused the seller to give up the info is another question entirely. But the fact remains that it's the most likely of all explanations. After that, when I moved back to the college town where I was studying, I stopped posting content. The girl goes on to explain. But somehow my stalkers still managed to track me down. The girl said she basically closed down her OnlyFans account, then started a YouTube account, because of how unsafe the former felt. Her first big vlogging project was due to be a shopping trip to a local mall. But when she got to her car to depart for the day, she found it had been ransacked. The vlogging camera was missing too, she said. I know it's my fault for leaving in the car, but I was using it the night before. And since I lived in a gated area, I didn't think I would be unsafe. Yet, she added that the camera was inside of her glove box and contained an SD card with unreleased photos and videos. It was almost like someone knew it was there. But as bad as that was, it only got weirder from there. She eventually contacted her building security personnel, asking if they could review security camera footage from the previous few nights. And it was through this that not only did she see a man break into her car and ignore other cars in the parking lot, but she also had proof she was being deliberately singled out for targeted harassment. After they got the camera, they walked around the duplex until, stopping near my window, the girl wrote, "My bedroom faces an outside street, and the blinds are broken, so it's very easy to see in. I have a curtain, but it doesn't cover my window all the way. Look, what I'm trying to say is, this person watched me sleep for an hour or so. I have no idea why they didn't try to break in, but thank God they didn't." The woman explained her camera was later recovered at the nearby second-hand store, suggesting whoever is stalking her has a prior history of criminality. However, she added that the camera's memory card was missing. "I know, we kept it as some kind of trophy. I just know it. She had it and has since moved and hopes her stalker hasn't followed. I believe the police are still trying to track them down, but I've broken my lease and moved to a new place. So hopefully this will keep me safe." But what's so scary about the girl's story is that it seems like only a matter of time before the stalker decides to take things further. Unless they're caught. Stalkers will only ever escalate their activities until their obsession reaches a deadly and permanent end.